like we get with Ronnie Dyler, which of course can be hit and miss.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about Nancy coming in, saying he's only got really knowledge of MLS, and actually it might be we could see a facet of him coming in. He brings in players that he knows from that market, Major League Soccer. I think for a long time, Major League Soccer was viewed as a kind of a European players' graveyard. It's where players would go for the last hurrah a little bit. I think that's changed in recent years. I think, now with the franchise that David Beckham set up over there, players like Lionel Messi, okay, advanced in years, but going there and actually, tearing it up. And we even saw some Celtic players moving out there. I remember Lewis Morgan went out there, did very, very well, and so still doing very, very well. And, Patrick Klamala, I think, was another one went out there. But when we brought Ange in, for example, Lawrence, Ange came with a knowledge of players that he thought could work well under him as the coach. If we look at someone like Nancy, for example, or we look at someone like Knutsen, who's coming obviously from Bodo Glimt, while their knowledge of player markets may be, we assume, maybe slightly restricted, but could he maybe, or is it a positive thing that a coach, brings in players who you think in the short term, these guys can do a job for me. These guys, I know what they can get out of these guys, and I can elevate these guys to play at their best possible level. So I'm wondering if that's, that we shouldn't post too much scorn on players who are maybe only, or on managers rather, who've only worked in one market.
Listen, any manager's coming in is going to come in with his preferred style of play, and he'll have a knowledge of players that he's been looking at for his current club, that would fit that style. So he will have earmarked players that fit his style of play. He'll also, if it's from the MLS, he'll know the better players there. Much like, when Ange came over, he knew the better players in the Far East. So it's a bonus of getting a manager out with the UK, shall we say. You're getting exposure to that market. The problem is he's then stepping into a style of football that he's not quite as intimate with. And you don't know how he's going to adapt to that style of football. But, it worked for Ange. Just because it worked for him doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. But
no.
At the end of the day, we're the biggest club in Scotland by far. We've got the best squad. We should win the league 9 times out of 10. We all want to make it 10 out of 10. We're almost halfway there. So it's bringing in someone that can keep that going. For me, it's a wee bit to the January transfer window. Martin Sean's doing well. If we waited till then to get the new manager in, so it would give him time to say come in and sign 3 or 4 players at the same time, might be the better option than bringing somebody in that's got their own style of play. And he might arrive here going, there's not a lot of fit players, and the ones we've got can't play my style of football. It might not be the best start for him. Whereas Sean and Martin, it's 2 4-0 wins in the league. We won a semi-final where the referee was absolutely shocking to us. We should have 2 or 3 penalties. There could have been another 2 or 3 Rangers players sent off. But for somehow it was all about the decapitation of Butland. You know what I mean? That was 3-1 going on 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And they were very fortunate the referee stopped to our breaks to give, he was giving an offside when we're breaking and they're out of position. Or he's not playing advantage. Very, very fortunate. So domestically, it looks like Sean and Martin, they've steadied the ship. In the league, it's 8 scored, none conceded. I don't think we're in a bigger rush, and I think it maybe just leave them in charge to Christmas.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I think a few people have echoed those points as well. We'll try and get some of the comments up. Ian, as you can see, has dropped out. We've brought in Liam Carrigan's a very able substitute. Apologies for the earlier sound issues. It's something that we can't necessarily always tell prior to the show, but we'll continue as we are, and hopefully we'll get any further issues sorted. But thank you for your patience, everyone. Liam, welcome to the show, mate. We are talking all things potential management candidates. We've had the 4 that have been heavily linked in the mainstream media. I think Sky Sports News went kind of public with 3 of them. There's another one in Nicky Hayen who's been linked, Club Brugge, pretty successful manager. Obviously, there's talk of Martin O'Neill sticking around. You know, seems to be getting a tune, at least domestically, out of this squad of players just now. Doesn't look as though he's applied major surgery. Looks a lot more like it's kind of, you know, maybe taking the shackles off, as a lot of people have said. You know, injecting maybe a bit of confidence and self-belief back into the team, which is we know was one of the hallmarks of Martin O'Neill when he first took over in his first tenure. And then there's some other candidates. Like Marco Rose is is a name that's been mentioned quite a lot. Some people still clinging to the hope that Ange might come back and for a second stint. Where do you sit at the moment? So, given that we're coming into an international break, there's no football, club football to worry about for a short period. Maybe time for the club to do a bit of behind-the-scenes business. Lawrence has referenced the fact that we've certainly got quite a few injuries. We've got a transfer window coming up in January, which is not necessarily where a lot of managers like to do their business. Sometimes it's almost a bit of a platform for the summer, you know, get some players in, allow them to adapt. Whereas I think, you know, this time we actually need reinforcements in January. Where do you stand? Would you like to see Martin O'Neill be given the opportunity to do something in January, maybe solidify our form this year and get us through the summer to allow a new manager to come in? Or would you be more of the opinion that we should get someone in, give them time to assess the squad and let them, you know, take control of their recruitment?
Well, whatever happens, first of all, if it turns out that Martin O'Neill's second stint ends now, he's done an incredible job.
Yeah.
You know, effectively half the deficit in the league and put us in a cup final. That's no bad for 2 weeks' work, right? So whatever happens, Martin, thank you for coming in our hour of need and steadying the ship, right? Absolutely. I think that needs to be said right away. I'm not sure about this new manager because none of the candidates that are currently being banded about really excite me, to be quite honest. Knutsen and the boy from Bruges, what's his name again?
Hayen, Mickey
Hayen, yeah. They're the standout candidates of the ones that are being seriously linked. But both of them, I have the same question about both of them, right? Both very capable coaches, very capable managers, that's clear. But how much of their success in recent times is down to them as managers and how much of it is down to those clubs being ran far better than Celtic are? That's my issue, is that you can only do the toilet with the appendage you have, as they say, right? So did well cleaning that one up, didn't I?
Wow, I'm going to kind of wait to see the comments on that one, Liam.
But, you know, that's the thing, though. Knutsen or Hayen come in, and if they've got to work under the same board that Brendan Rodgers did, things aren't necessarily going to get any better. Yeah. That's the issue. And that's why I think a lot of people now are leaning towards this Wilfred Nancy, because extremely accomplished coach in the MLS. Now, we can debate about whether or not we think the MLS is, you know, as good as, better, or inferior to Scotland. But what I would say is that a lot of the comments I'm seeing about the MLS, and I don't know the MLS, it's not a league I follow. I mean, Quinny knows quite a bit about it from what I understand, but, you know, I see a lot of the same things being said about the MLS and about Nancy that were said about Ange before he came in. And knowing what I know about the J League, I know that a lot of that was hyperbolic nonsense. You know, about it being a pub league and whatever. And so this is the issue. It's like, I don't know how good the MLS really is. And if it's as good as the J League, and this guy has accomplished similar things over there to what Ange did in Japan before we got him, could be a good signing.
Yep.
Could also open up a whole new market for us, because we haven't really tapped into North America yet, when you think about it. We got Alistair Johnson, but apart from that, you know, we had a couple of American trialists that came over that never really worked out. You know, we famously could have signed John Harkes back in the early 90s, but we couldn't get a work permit for him. You know, there's that's a what could have been him and who was it, the goalkeeper? Yeah, they were both like ready to sign for Celtic, and imagine how much better our team would have been with those two in them in the early 90s. But aye. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be getting a manager in the next couple of weeks. I don't see it happening, because if we go for Knutsen, why would he leave when Bodo Glimt are still in the Champions League?
Yeah.
Okay. Nancy would come in, but I don't think that would be accepted by the wider fan base. I think we need a. Martin O'Neill has raised expectations by showing what can be done. And the other thing is, where does all this current fan anger towards the board go next? Because they threw petrol on the proverbial bonfire at the weekend with everything that happened with the Green Brigade. I don't know if you guys have discussed that yet or not.
We've not, but it is something I want to touch on in a few minutes. So yeah, we will get.
I think it all plays in to this wider picture of the Celtic board need to get this right.
Yeah,
they need to get it right, and so if that means we keep going with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney for another few weeks, or even up until Christmas, fine. If that's what it takes, we need to get this right.
Yeah. So I think, Liam, we'll come to the Green Brigade issue in a few minutes. But I think one point that you touched on there, which I now do want to bring in, and Lawrence will bring you in on this one. So a lot of the concern around bringing in a new manager at the moment, there's this perception that no matter who we bring in, it's a bit of a punt, because a lot of the underlying issues, we believe, sit with the wider football operation. We've spoken about challenges with recruitment up to this point. We went into a European game without a right winger or a replacement striker. We've talked about the disconnect maybe between certain football departments and certain operational departments like the CEO and CFO, etc. Now, and we've also put a lot of scrutiny on Dermot Desmond's operational role within the club. He's the largest minority shareholder, not typically someone who takes a governance sort of role in operational matters, but he does for Celtic, and he acts as very much a de facto owner. Now, without going too much into what Desmond's role will be on this, but we've seen some changes in the football operation. I think we've seen them at the certainly the youth and development level, the pathway level. Sean Maloney's come in, seems to be doing a lot of good work prior to taking on the assistant role. We've heard rumours that the chairman may step down, that we might see a change in the CEO. Don't know if any of those are substantial, but there could be changes happening in the football operation. Now, if those changes, Lawrence, that hopefully will coincide maybe with a new manager or an endorsement of Martin O'Neill continuing, if we can get those two areas aligned, does it make some of the noise go away, some of the concern over Dermot Desmond, or is that continually going to fester away? And actually, could we end up just going through a managerial merry-go-round where managers will come in, they'll work under the same processes, they may end up with similar frustrations that former managers have spoken about? There's more that needs to be done than just bringing in a manager, isn't there?
Look, you need to make sure that the manager can work well with the football club. So yeah, either bring in a manager that's willing to work with where it is, or if you're bringing a manager that says, well, I can't work like that, you need to change this, you need to change. Last time it worked really well for me was under Gordon Strachan. He's on record saying, look, you can only manage a football club of Celtic size for 3 years. Maybe we change every 3 years. The only thing that will make it go away is if Celtic keep winning, and we keep winning trophies, and we show some progress in Europe. See, if we progress in Europe next year, we win a treble this year, win a treble again next year, and nothing's changed at board level. Nobody's really going to care if we progress to Europe and we'll just put two trebles in, and Dermot's put another good manager. He's got a record of appointing managers that do well. So if he's pulled out another good manager, going, this isn't ideal, but you know what? Another couple of trebles and we've done better in Europe. Things could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So if we start winning games and progress in Europe, I think the noise goes away.
Okay.
I don't particularly think Dermot wants to step in and run the football club all the time. When Brendan came back, we were sure he was going to be here for 3 years. All the issues had been sorted. He left for much the same issues he left for the first time round. So I think on the non-footballing side, the guys that didn't get the deals done, they really need to up their game if they want to stay. If I was them, I'd be worried about my position after that kind of recruitment window. And yeah, we've got to bring someone that can work in harmony with the non-football side.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I think it makes sense. I'm going to get a couple of comments in because we've not had a chance to bring up any comments and get your thoughts. So I'm going to start with David Murphy. Martin O'Neill till January at least, give him the cup final and don't rush his replacement. I think there's merit in saying don't rush. I think it is important that this is a well thought out process because the process is coming under a lot of scrutiny. So I think it is very, very important that optically it looks as though this has been a well thought out and managed decision, whoever we bring in. Joe 5304 comes in to say Nancy plays a 3-4-2-1. Going to be fun in games if that's a pick. Pretty sure Tisdale knows him personally. Yeah, it has been. I think it has been indicated that he has had some form of working relationship with Paul Tisdale previously, which is maybe why there's a little bit of cynicism over the over the potential appointment. But I think at the same time there's maybe different there's different perspectives you can take in terms of his qualifications. Scottish Bike Adventure come out and say Michael Nicholson running the bike. He may have been. We may be subject to some sabotage, but no, I think it's just it's gremlins in the system occasionally, and unfortunately we had to deal with those earlier on, but we have managed to sort them, I believe. River C Free comes in. River C, I think YouTube has changed some of the usernames here, so I'll try and make sure I'm not misrepresenting anyone. But River C comes in to say if the board doesn't change, if the Dermot Desmond isn't going off, it doesn't matter if we get Knutsen, Nancy, or a consortium of every manager in the league. And I think this is the concern, right? Is that Liam, what we don't want to do is bring in a manager and it becomes rinse and repeat. We maybe get the manager bounce. We get a manager who comes in, tries to impose his own style, and then hits a bit of a brick wall because where he wants to take the club, it doesn't align with the ambition of those in charge of running the football operation, running the financial operation. So I think it's very important that any manager that comes in does have that degree of control over football matters and also has that backing that he needs. Look, we haven't heard comments from Brendan Rodgers yet since he left. We've not heard response to Dermot Desmond's statement about, the failures on the managerial side that were alleged. So, it's we don't want to speculate too much. But the one thing that you really do want is you want a manager that comes in who has the opportunity to put his own identity onto the squad, and that ultimately is going to take investment, isn't it? Yeah,
which is why whoever does come in, I think, needs to come in before the January window, because what's the point of bringing a manager in and say, right, okay, you're going to work with this team for the next 4 months, and then in summer, if you win the league, then you'll get the chance to bring in some of your own players. If you don't, you might be out the door. That's the unfortunate reality of being a Celtic manager, is there is that expectation that you win the league every year.
Yep.
So any manager that comes in needs to be able to handle that pressure right away. And that's another question. Of all of the candidates that we're looking at the moment, how many of them are realistically at a club where they are expected to win like 95% of their games?
Yes.
That's an almost unique situation. There's maybe only 15, 20 teams in all the world football where that level of expectation is there. But Celtic is one of them.
Absolutely.
At least. So,
yeah. Well, it was an interesting point. I think a good example of that was there was a manager very highly lauded in Italy, Thiago Motta. That Thiago Motta, the one that, was it Bobo Baldi, I think, knocked him out.
Yeah, he got Bobo'd.
that Thiago Motta. But I think the guys in the comments will keep me honest here. I think he became head coach of Genoa, did really, really well. Very progressive coach, group football, very similar style of football to Celtic. Got a big move to Juventus. Juventus may be a club that's got similar sort of expectations to Celtic. And ultimately, while he tried to impose his style, wasn't really given the patience. Fans started to get on his back. Was accusations of losing the dressing room. That's the scenario you want to avoid. At Celtic, you as much as we want to give a manager the time and the backing, Liam makes a great point, Lawrence. you don't get that at Celtic, right? The expectation is there. But looking at all the available candidates out there, looking at the clubs that would maybe match those expectations, we're not pulling in any of those managers, are we? I mean, they're not really within our net, as it were, for recruitment.
Yeah, I doubt Guardiola's going to leave City to come to us.
We could ask,
Yeah, could ask the question. But look, I think we touched on it last week. Before with great success bringing up Martin and Brendan from the Premiership, those managers that are up and coming in that level will probably be out of our range. So we need to cast them out further afield. We've done it with Ange. There are managers out there that are experienced winners. And I think that's what you need to bring in, somebody that's used to winning and knows how to win.
Yeah.
Because that's all it's about. And as far as kind of long term, I'd probably go with Gordon Strachan and think we'll probably be changing our manager every 3 years. Either A, because they're not good enough, or because B, they are good enough, they've done well, and a league with more money's come in for them, like they did with Ange.
Yeah.
Spurs came in and obviously he went for the milk and honey of the EPL, won a trophy in his second year, and yeah, that was it. But so I think this is something we're going to face kind of every 3 years. I would leave it to Christmas though. I think bringing a manager in just now with our injury problems, lack of depth up front and on the right wing, probably not fair to him. If you bring him in at Christmas, give him money to get his players into fill positions, but it gives him a chance to go on and win the league. Just now, he could come in, could struggle in his first few games, and it could be a loss before it really gets started.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick correction, I got it from Quinny and Craig Gordon as well, saying it was Bologna, not Genoa for Tego Mata. So yeah, my apologies. Thanks for keeping me honest, guys. I've been to Italy that many times, I should really know that. Liam, we'll shelve the manager talk just for a moment. You brought up a point that I think has been, it's been discussed quite a bit, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. So obviously, the Green Brigade have been subject to a 6-match banning order by the club, a collective banning order. This follows an incident. Now, I cannot validate either the Green Brigade's or the club's version of events, so I'm not going to try and do that. I don't want to be misinforming or misrepresenting what actually happened. However, there was an incident which, from the statement that was released by Celtic, seemed to indicate that there was, I can't remember if the word assault was used, but certainly there was an altercation between a fan and a member of the Celtic stewarding staff. I think the police were then subsequently involved. I think what's important to mention is that I don't believe there's been any arrests as a result, but there was video posted which seemed to show a large portion of the Green Brigade, the members of the Green Brigade, going back down under the terraces, and I've not seen anything since then. So I don't want to try and put a colour on the version of events from either side, but I think the important point is there has been this tension, and I think that's using that term very, very lightly. There's been tension between the supporters, including the kind of supporters organisations such as the Green Brigade and the board for quite some time. There's been talk of lack of communication, lack of engagement, lack of liaison, and now, as a result of this incident, a collective seemed to have been banned, even though the indications are that the incident didn't involve the entire Green Brigade. So it feels a little bit, again, like an antagonistic move by the club to supporters. And it's obviously been, some people in favour of the club's actions, some people very much against the club's action. Where do you stand on this? And was this the worst possible time for something like this sort of action to be taken by the board?
Yeah, the timing absolutely stinks because, again, I've no evidence to suggest this is the case, but if the board were trying to silence dissent ahead of the AGM, getting the Green Brigade out of the picture until after the AGM would be a way to do it.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about some facts. First of all, the video that Celtic released, all it shows is a surge of people towards a particular area of the concourse. That's all it shows.
Yep.
They tell us it was fans rushing to attack police or attack stewards, whatever, right? We don't have evidence of that. The club have not presented any evidence of that, right? I've also heard conflicting accounts that say the Green Brigade members who did go down there did so in reaction to the fan being assaulted by the police. Again, no evidence either way, but that's the allegation that's being made. All you have at the moment, all you've got, is one set of allegations from the club and another set of allegations from the Green Brigade. And no conclusive proof either way.
Yep.
So you cannot ban people just because I reckon that's what happened.
Yeah.
No, there needs to be an open and transparent investigation into all of this. And see if they can't prove what happened, then Scotland is still a country that should be innocent until proven guilty. So if you cannot prove with any beyond reasonable doubt that anybody in the Green Brigade is guilty, you don't ban any of them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it. That's a key issue, isn't it? Yeah.
That's it. And sorry, I'm ranting a bit here, but this is I've got a bee in my bonnet about this, as you would say. And the other issue is that collective punishment is just not on. It is not on. You cannot. I mean, what is there, about 100 people that have been banned, effectively?
I believe so, yep.
Right. That video showed about maybe 30 people getting involved in this situation. So whatever happened, even if you assume that all the people that jumped out of that area and engaged with the police are guilty of something, and again, like you say, there's been no arrests, there's been no no conclusive evidence to suggest criminality. Even then, 70 people have been banned for 6 games for doing nothing, effectively. And Celtic's own video evidence proves that.
Yeah, and they've not indicated to us any other elements of the investigation, so we're having to make a judgment based on what we've seen and what's been released at this point. I mean, look, the one thing we'll say is we would never suggest there's any excuse for any member of the Celtic staff or grounds being abused, but I think that also applies in the strongest possible terms that supporters don't go and support the club and pay their money to go to the club to then be subject to abuse or rough treatment by anyone, whether it be a steward or a member of the police. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think was it for you, Lawrence? Was it an overreaction or too much of a knee-jerk reaction from the club? Is it something you think they could have managed better, rather than sort of widen the gap between the supporters' view of how the club is being run and how they perceive the club being run?
But I don't think this is all about this one incident. The Green Brigade have had a suspended ban hanging over them for a while. They've had a number of issues with the way, but Celtic have a number of issues with the way they behave within stadiums. I know away grounds, other fans have had issues getting moved out of seats for them. So I wouldn't say either party is entirely blameless. The allegations that I think from the Celtic side, that a Celtic member of staff was assaulted, 2 police officers were intimidated. What was it? Celtic said 100. Liam says the video shows 30. Green Brigade, I think they've come out and said, collective punishment's not right. We're trying to talk about people. I've seen that, the email they released saying, we want to get some kind of agreed punishments in place for infractions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure about that. I think they're becoming more, from Celtic's point of view, from the board. I think the board are going, look, we actually can't be bothered dealing with you. I think that's why they're not responding to them. Whether that's right or wrong, it's up to Celtic who gets into the ground and who doesn't. I think it's pretty poor from Celtic that they'll make money out of the Green Brigade, make money out of the tifos.
Yeah.
Well, the engagement doesn't seem to be there, but at the end of the day, the people that decide who you get into Celtic's Celtic. Whether or not you can have your ticket, they can return the money, they can ban you, they can do what they want. There does seem to be the ongoing pyros. They've been asked to stop how many times. That there's other issues that aren't of the Green Brigade's making that seem to fall on them. People like the standing section. They try and get into the standing section without a ticket. That's not a Green Brigade issue. That's Celtic. How do police that? Did it put more standing issues in place? But I think the Green Brigade they seem to be falling victim of that, the heavier stewarding and policing in that area to stop other people coming in.
Yeah.
But, as Liam said, we're not seeing actually what happened in the concourse. No one knows. Police with their body cameras. I'm pretty sure there'd been CCTV there. But we don't see any of that. We just kind of see people rushing into the bills of the stadium, which in itself doesn't really mean anything. you know, from what we've seen. I think I don't think I can't see that relationship between the Green Brigade and the board ever coming out as a positive one, shall we say. There seems to be too much about it all the time. It's 2 or 3 times a season all the time, whether it's pyros or whatever. It's not going well. And I think the board's lacking engagement now, not replying to them in their emails, and not, you know, Green Brigade have alleged that, you know, they've offered meetings, but then they don't do anything about it. Celtic, I think Celtic's about to draw a line under them. Looks, I mean, if this is a 6-game ban, what would the next one be? Would they double it up to 12?
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden you're going, well, wait a minute, that's 3 home games, another 6, it's 9 home games out. So I think Celtic are ready to just kind of go, like, you know what, it's more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, but is that the one counterpoint to that, Lawrence? Is it trouble of the Green Brigade's making, or is it trouble of the club and the board's making? Because as you say, the lack of engagement, the lack of communication, they've never set out a clear, defined set of rules of engagement that was in collaboration with the Green Brigade or any other supporters association. So, you know,
I think some of you can't deny the pyros. You can't say pyros, and it's continued. We will do that because we want to do that. Doesn't matter if it's illegal or not. We'll behave how we want to behave. I don't know if that's an acceptable position. Doesn't matter how it affects other people. And I remember John Fallon, God rest him, his daughter put on Facebook that her father's health was adversely affected by the fumes from pyros at a game. So I think you'd agree you can't have any group of fans that's just going, it doesn't matter how it affects other fans.
No.
It doesn't matter if it's
can't self-police.
This is what we're going to do. And, you know, there are issues the board could probably do better, but at the end of the day, I think the board's lack of engagement, it shows you where they are. And handing out a 6-game ban, what do you think? That, you know, they will plan the next one. So I think the board are just going to go, you know what, I had enough, that's it. Rightly or wrongly, I think that's where it's going to end up.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Let's get a few of your thoughts in the comments. Where Cyber comes in to say it's like the kid in class who misbehaves but doesn't admit it, but the whole class are culpable. Yeah, I remember that. It was very frustrating. I promise I wasn't that kid, by the way.
I was.
Alpha 64 comes in to say the same thing as really. It's an excuse with the AGM coming up, which is I think a fair point. River C comes in just to respond back to yourself, Lawrence. She said that the point is we don't even know if the Green Brigade members were involved or which ones indeed. I think.
Yeah, but I think it's bigger than this one issue.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knows what, unless you were there, because nobody's released the video.
Yeah.
Liam's boxed on it. We don't know what happened about the stadium. So
I think another very important point in this is that the Green Brigade reached out to the club the day after this happened, right? They clearly felt something wasn't right. Whatever it was, they were like, we need to speak to the club about this. And the club made the choice to not engage at that point. Whether the Green Brigade were right or wrong, again, it's not for me to judge because I wasn't there and I haven't seen evidence. But it's no good look on Celtic's part when the people you're accusing of committing something against the stadium regulations, you ban all of them without engaging with them, without discussing it, without any sort of opportunity to offer their side of the story. And then your best evidence of supporting it is a video that Arthur Montford would have called a stramash, nothing more.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of these things that's going to rumble on. We all want the same thing. I think we all want alignment between the supporters and the club. I think Lawrence makes a good point. I don't think we can allow supporters, just for purely safety reasons, to have carte blanche over what they can and can't do. I think you're right, but what I think would help that process is having dialogue with the club, and the club saying, in a very collaborative manner, saying, look, guys, we appreciate what you want to do in terms of protests, in terms of visuals, in terms of tifos, in terms of, if you want to do pyro, but actually there's a safety element to that, have that conversation, have that dialogue and say, look, guys, maybe if you want to do a protest, for example, but just remember, this might result in us getting a fine or potentially some sort of ban from UEFA. So why don't you do it pre-match outside the stadium? Make the point. I don't understand why the two parties can't just get around a table and actually say, Green Brigade says this is what we want to do. And the board says we can accept some of that. Some of it we're not too happy about. How can we compromise on this? Is that such a difficult thing, Liam, for a football club to do, when a football club is basically the lifeblood of a football club is its supporters?
It shouldn't be, but clearly for the Celtic board it is, because they have, over a number of years, and this goes back beyond the Green Brigade, this goes back even further, because I had dealings with Celtic 25 years ago through my dad's company, and the same issues were there. The people in charge at Celtic would talk at people, not to them. It was always, you will do this, you will do that, if you don't like it, get out. And anyone who challenged that was very quickly branded, not a true Celtic fan, or working against the best interests of the club, all the usuals of propaganda nonsense that you hear. And that's the underlying issue with all of this, is that the people who run the club are not, I don't know if they're even capable of speaking to people like the Green Brigade as equals. It's always the stern headmaster talking down to them. And people don't like being spoke to like that. I mean, I don't know, I have no evidence, but I would bet this whole latest incident was probably triggered by one of Celtic staff acting, overstepping their authority, perhaps, acting in an aggressive manner, or perhaps doing something that didn't need to be done in terms of security. And it's triggered a whole series of events that has led us to where we are. Because I know from personal experience that 95% of the people who work at Celtic Park are decent people just trying to get a wage, stewards and whatever, right? But there's always that 5% of wee Hitlers who just get off on the power. And they're the ones that cause the trouble. And they've always been there, and I'll bet they're still there today.
Well, there's been plenty of reports, both recent and historic, to back that up. And I think you're right. Respect goes both ways. There's obviously responsibility on every supporter to conduct themselves the right way and treat Celtic staff with respect. And every time I'm at Celtic Park, that seems to be evident. But you need the same back, because this is such a passion for supporters to come and attend a football club, go to the stadium, enjoy themselves, enjoy the football, support the team. And they pay a lot of money that they don't have to do that. And I think, it is very, very important that they're treated as, for me, as much a part of the club as any other, member of staff that's there, because they play their part.
But kind of need to be clear that we don't know this Stuart.
No.
With any disrespect.
No,
it's probably on
absolutely
£12.53, £12.83 an hour.
Yep.
And what the club are saying actually happened, to be confronted by 100 people, Liam, you reckon it's 30 people that ran out for £12.53 an hour for doing your job for Celtic?
Aye, it's nothing justifies that. I should have made that clear.
The problem is we don't know what happened. The club have said, the steward and the police officer traumatised. We don't know. There should be video from the police. There should be video from the club that would show what's happening in there. Maybe they've not released it because they do expect criminal charges to follow.
That's also a possibility. Yeah.
You don't know. That's the problem just now. But I think it's bigger than one issue just now between. That's just the latest between the board and the Green Brigade. So, and I think with a 6-game ban, what's the next move? It wouldn't be another 6. It's probably double it. A 12-game ban. Missing 9 home games a season, huge. So I don't know how they sort it out. It seems a pretty toxic relationship between the board and the Green Brigade.
It does, and it's to the detriment of what happens on the field as well. So we would like to see more alignment, please, between supporters and those in power at the football club. Guys, we are at time. Apologies to all those who've tuned in for the earlier hiccups. We'll try and do what we can to avoid those going forward. But just normally when we have a match coming up, we like to get a little prediction as to how the score goes. We don't have that option here. So what I'm going to do is get the guys to give us a prediction. What do you think will happen between now and the end of the season? I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but in terms of a new manager. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think will happen? And I'm also going to ask you, what would you like to happen between now and the end of the season in terms of the managerial situation and any other factors that might impact that? So, Lawrence, we'll start with you. What do you think will happen? Well, actually, let's flip it. So, what would you like to see happen between now and the end of the season? What would be your preference?
Between now and the January transfer window, I think Monaghan delivers a trophy and will be top of the league. new guy comes in, Celtic will go all crazy, and actually we've got a positive spend. We've actually spent more money than we're brought in a transfer window, and I think we'll deliver the league. I think we'll do a League Cup double.
Yeah, and that's what you would like to see happen as well. You'd be comfortable.
I'd like a treble, mate, but
right.
yeah,
Absolutely. And Liam, same question. What would you like to see happen versus what do you think will happen?
Right. What I'd like to see happen is for a new manager to come in along with some new board members. I've accepted that Dermot Desmond is going to continue to be part of things for the foreseeable future because it's going to take a very long-term effort to displace him. But if he shifts from absentee landlord to benevolent dictator, that's a move in the right direction. So if he brings in people that are good at their jobs and just lets them get on with it, then that will steady the ship. That's what I hope will happen. And part of that is bringing in a manager. And I think what I think will happen, I don't know what's going to happen with the boardroom stuff because that's beyond my remit at the moment. Although I am looking into it for the blog, so updates coming soon. But the thing is, Martin O'Neill, I think we will know who is going to replace him by the time the cup final comes round. But I think the cup final might be his last game as Celtic interim manager. I think that would be a good idea. Imagine him leading out the team. Hopefully we win a cup. And then, the new manager is in the stand watching it. And Martin O'Neill says, right, over to you, sir. Beat that.
Yeah, I would take that all day long. That would be fantastic. What an end to the man's second tenure at Celtic, and we'll just cement, if it wasn't already, just cement his status as an absolute legend. I'm going to get a couple of comments in just before we wrap up there, and I do want to give a couple of little shout outs. So Alpha 064 comes in, would like to see board changes. I mean, I think we would as well. I'm not sure we'll get that. Weirsider comes in to see another cracking show. Thank you. I know we had a few hiccups early on, but guys have really stepped up. So hopefully that'll be the last time we have those issues.
Sorry, everybody. I had a class to teach, and I only finished it at 10 o'clock. So sorry.
Absolutely. And I wish this was true. In the heat, 67. Yes, I've just won the lottery, 7.4 million. I'm buying TT, 7.4 million. Well, listen, that would be ideal if we've done that. Maybe come to you for a little tap. Just a couple of wee shout outs that I wanted to mention. So many of you would have seen Kevin Graham on the show yesterday. We hadn't seen Kev for a bit prior to that because his old fella hadn't been too well, and Kev's been doing his best to look after him, make sure he gets to and from hospital. The good news is he seems to be, slowly recovering, and it is in fact a big milestone birthday for him today. So we wish Kevin's dad, Tam, I think it was. So I called him Mr. Graham, but I think Tam. We hope you're doing well. Have a happy birthday and get back on your feet as soon as you can, sir. I also want to give a wee personal shout out to my little cousin Michelle and our future husband, or husband to be, we come on next year, Michael. Two big Celtic fans. Mick himself is a big Hoops fan, and he's given me a bit. I was going to say a bit of praise, but slagging for being on here. But I'd like to wish you two of them happy birthday today as well. I hope you're both well, guys.
Another birthday as well.
Oh.
Andrew Beverley, part-time barman in the Skylark Bar.
Part-time barman, I like it.
Yeah, so big happy birthday to Andy Beverley.
Happy birthday, Andy.
Also, sorry, it's my missus's birthday on Friday. So happy birthday, Kayo, and thank you for putting up with me for so long.
Happy birthday, Kayo. How do you wish someone a happy birthday in Japanese?
Otanjobi omedetou.
I'm not even going to attempt that, actually, mate. I was going to, but no, that's not happening. No, I'll just say happy birthday in my Scottish accent. You can translate for me on that. No, happy birthday, Kayo. Guys, listen, just want to say a big thank you to everybody for your comments, for tuning in. I love that at one point, with the counter, we were over 2,000, but at one point the counter did say 1888, and I love to see that. It's just the best. I need to try and screenshot that every time we get it, so it's good. But thanks very much for sticking with us. We will be back again tomorrow at 12:30. I believe PJ will be back in hot seat. And yeah, hopefully we'll get through this international break. And will we see Martin O'Neill continue, or will we see a new manager? And either way, it won't change anything. We will still be there every week, every day for Celtic. So thank you again for following Celtic State of Mind. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.